Welcome to Scary Production, your gateway to the most spine-chilling horror stories and unnerving tales. Dive into a world of darkness where every shadow hides a secret and every whisper tells a haunting story. From ghostly encounters to unsolved mysteries, we bring you the finest in horror content designed to keep you on the edge of your seat. Are you ready to face your fears? Subscribe now, and let the terror begin. Blood of the House. The old mansion stood on the outskirts of town, shrouded in the tangled embrace of ancient trees and creeping vines. Its weathered facade whispered secrets of the past, secrets that no one dared to uncover. Locals called it the Blood House, a name that sent shivers down the spines of those who spoke it. It was said that the mansion had a history stained with blood, a legacy of violence and death that spanned generations. Some believed it was cursed, others thought it was simply the product of madness. Whatever the truth, the Blood House was a place of nightmares. One crisp autumn evening, a group of 4 friends decided to explore the mansion. They were thrill seekers, always on the lookout for the next adrenaline rush. Amy, the fearless leader of the group, had heard the legends and was determined to see the house for herself. With her were David, a skeptical but curious soul, Nina, whose fascination with the paranormal bordered on obsession, and Tom, the reluctant participant who had been dragged along against his better judgment. As they approached the mansion, a sense of foreboding settled over them. The wind howled through the trees, carrying with it the faint, metallic scent of blood. The front door, hanging askew on its hinges, creaked ominously as they pushed it open. Inside, the air was thick with dust and decay. "Are we really doing this?" Tom asked, his voice trembling. "Come on, don't be such a scaredy cat," Amy replied, her eyes gleaming with excitement. "It's just an old house." The foyer was grand, with a sweeping staircase leading to the upper floors. Faded portraits of stern-faced ancestors lined the walls, their eyes seeming to follow the intruders as they moved deeper into the house. The floorboards groaned under their weight, each step echoing through the empty halls. "Look at this place," Nina whispered, her flashlight beam dancing over the cracked plaster and peeling wallpaper. "It's like something out of a horror movie." "Yeah, a bad one," David muttered, though his nervousness was evident. They explored the first floor, finding nothing more than dust-covered furniture and cobwebs. The kitchen was a relic from another era, its rusted appliances and tarnished silverware untouched for decades. The dining room, with its long, ornate table, looked as though a feast had been abandoned in haste, dishes and cutlery strewn about. "I don't see any blood," David said, attempting to lighten the mood. "Maybe it's all upstairs," Amy suggested with a grin. "Come on, let's check it out." They ascended the staircase, their footsteps echoing in the silence. The second floor was a maze of narrow corridors and darkened rooms. Each door they opened revealed more of the same, decayed furniture, broken windows, and the suffocating sense of emptiness. Then they found the study. The room was different from the others. It was unnaturally cold, the air biting and frigid. The walls were lined with bookshelves, their contents spilling onto the floor. In the center of the room was a large, mahogany desk, its surface marred by deep, gouging scratches. And there, on the floor, was a pool of blood. Nina gasped, covering her mouth with her hand. "Oh my God," she whispered. "It's real." The blood was dark and congealed, as if it had been there for a long time. Yet it looked disturbingly fresh, the crimson hue stark against the faded carpet. A trail of droplets led from the pool to a door on the far side of the room. "Should we follow it?" Amy asked, her voice hushed with a mix of fear and excitement. David hesitated, but curiosity won out. "Let's see where it leads." They followed the trail, their footsteps careful and silent. The door opened into a narrow passageway, dimly lit by flickering candles mounted on the walls. The air was thick with the scent of wax and something else, something metallic and sickening. At the end of the passage was another door, this one heavy and reinforced with iron bands. Amy pushed it open, and they stepped into a small, windowless chamber. The walls were covered in strange symbols, painted in what looked like blood. In the center of the room was a large stone slab, an altar of sorts, stained with dark, dried blood. Chains and manacles hung from the ceiling, and the floor was littered with bones. "Oh my God," Nina repeated, her voice barely a whisper. "What happened here?" "This must be where the rituals took place," Amy said, her eyes wide with horror and fascination. The stories were true. Tom, who had been silent for most of the exploration, finally spoke. "We need to leave. Now." But as they turned to go, the door slammed shut with a deafening crash. The candles flickered and went out, plunging them into darkness. Panic set in. They fumbled for their flashlights, but the batteries had inexplicably died. The air grew colder, and the metallic scent of blood became overpowering. Then they heard it. A low, guttural whisper, echoing through the chamber. The voice was ancient and malevolent, speaking in a language none of them understood. The ground beneath them began to tremble, and the walls seemed to pulse with a life of their own. The symbols glowed with an eerie, crimson light, casting grotesque shadows that danced across the room. "We have to get out of here," David shouted, his voice breaking with fear. But there was no escape. The door remained shut, and the walls seemed to close in on them. The whispers grew louder, more insistent, as if the very house were alive and hungry. Suddenly, Amy screamed. Her body convulsed, and she fell to the floor, writhing in agony. Blood poured from her eyes, nose, and mouth, pooling around her in a macabre echo of the stains on the altar. "Amy!" Tom cried, rushing to her side. But it was too late. Her eyes rolled back in her head, and her body went limp. The whispers grew louder, a cacophony of voices filling the chamber. Then the room went silent. The door creaked open, and a figure stood in the doorway. It was tall and gaunt, its skin stretched tight over its bones. Its eyes glowed with a malevolent red light, and its mouth twisted into a cruel smile. "Welcome," it said in a voice that was both a whisper and a roar. "Welcome to the Blood House." The friends huddled together, paralyzed with fear. The figure stepped closer, its bony fingers reaching out towards them. "This house is hungry," it said. "And you are its feast." The walls seemed to close in on them, the symbols pulsing with a life of their own. The ground beneath them trembled, and the air grew thick with the scent of blood. And then, everything went dark. The next morning, the townspeople found the mansion silent and empty. The friends were never seen again, their fates a mystery that only the Blood House knew. And so, the legend of the Blood House continued, a chilling reminder of the darkness that lurked within its walls, waiting for the next group of thrill-seekers to come and feed its insatiable hunger.